24 hours after a Spanish woman was raped at her Perry Cross Road apartment in Mumbai's Bandra West. The Mumbai Police have claimed to have made their first big breakthrough. The police claim they're questioning a suspect, and the Spanish woman has also identified him positively as her attacker and rapist. However, he's yet to confess. The shocking incident has raised serious questions about safety of women in a city that is known to be among India's safest. The suspect is a history sheeter named Badshah, and he was earlier arrested for theft at actor Dino Morea's residence. The police had released a sketch of the accused. Badshah was out on bail when he climbed onto the third floor apartment of the Spanish woman's flat. Raped her at knife point. Sources have told Headlines Today the victim has already identified the suspect at an identification parade. Well, now we give you a lowdown of what happened that terrible night. The robber, the attacker, entered the third floor flat on Perry Cross Road through an open window at about 3:30 a.m. He demanded that the victim hand over valuables. He had a knife in his hand and he brandished it at her. The woman ran to the lobby of the flat and screamed for help. Then the robber dragged her back into her flat, forced himself on her. The police took the victim for a medical test at 10 a.m., almost 6 hours later. The victim has recounted her harrowing trauma to the police. She has said, and I quote her here, "When I denied possessing any gold, the man threatened to kill me if I shouted. He then forced himself on me. I ran out of the room and banged the door of my neighbor. He pulled me in and pushed me on the bed. I got a hold of myself, and before the man could attack me, I ran towards my bathroom and locked it from inside. Fearing he was waiting for me, I shouted for help through the bathroom window. Within 45 minutes, the neighbors knocked down the bathroom door and got me out." Well, like I said, we've opened our phone lines and we want to know what you, the viewer, thinks about this question that nobody wants to ask. People who live in Mumbai love and respect Mumbai, but with this spate of crimes, especially where women are attacked in residential areas and where neighbors either do not or fail to respond in time, is that becoming a habit? Is Mumbai becoming heartless and dangerous for women, just like Delhi is? I want to get a quick update first on this investigation itself. I want to bring in Headlines Today's Pankaj Upadhyay for a quick reaction. Pankaj, we understand that there has been a positive identification of the suspect by the victim today.
Shiv, this is a very high-profile case, and obviously, so police is tight-lipped right now. They need to have a watertight case. Even though the victim has identified the accused, he still remains a suspect as far as police is concerned, because one, they would love this person to confess to the crime. Secondly, in order to have a watertight case, they need to recover the stolen goods from the place, and that still needs to be done. And for that, 8 teams of police have been formed, and they are tracking every single corner of the city to recover those goods, because mind you, in the court of law, they need to have a watertight case. Right. Even though the confession would be good enough, but then they need to recover those goods which have been stolen. Mind you, DNA analysis sample is going to be another crucial key. So even at this point of time, police has not come out in the open and said that they have cracked the case. Questioning is still on. They say that this accused is a hard nut to crack and is still yet to confess to his crime. So
I want to bring in my colleague Padmaja in on this story. Padmaja, this isn't the first. In the last few weeks, there have been a spate of crimes, including a few murders, where we've seen these attacks actually take place in residential areas, you know, not tough neighborhoods. This happened in Mumbai's Bandra West, which is a pretty posh, upscale, part of the city. It's almost the same sort of thing. The victim runs out, calls for neighbors' help. There is no response, and the crime finally takes place. It isn't a far-out question, is it, Padmaja, to actually start comparing Mumbai and Delhi now?
Absolutely. In fact, it's a dubious distinction. Neither city wants it, but unfortunately they're jostling for that distinction now. But what is particularly worrying, the difference between the two cities, Shiv, is the fact that in Delhi, women are extremely unsafe when they're out on the street at any time of the day. It's not about what you're wearing, what time you're out at. You're out on the streets and you're extremely vulnerable. But in Mumbai, the cases that have come to light over the last few days make women very unsafe inside their own houses. Just a few weeks ago, there was a young lawyer who was assaulted by the guard of her society inside her house. When she resisted, she was brutally murdered. And now we have this lady who was assaulted inside her flat again by this man who tried to rob her, and then he raped her. The basic question is that when you're living in a place like that, which has got CCTV cameras, which has a security guard at the gate, and you're still not safe, what does that say about your city?
Flavia Agnes, activist and lawyer, is also with us on the phone line for a reaction. Ms. Agnes, thanks for speaking to us this evening on Headlines Today. What is your take, ma'am, on how unsafe Mumbai appears to have become for women?
Well, recent incidents have been disturbing, to say the least, particularly middle class, upper middle class residential areas where women are assaulted, women are murdered in their own homes.
Yes.
And that's something we have not heard of these incidents before. There have been murders of elderly women for the last couple of years. The young girls being raped and murdered is something really new. And that is really disturbing. And because Mumbai has so many single women staying here and working in different professions, and if the city is not safe, it does not augur well for the city.
Well, you're absolutely...
Bombay has a reputation of being the safest city for single working women in India, and that's slowly fading away.
Ms. Agnes, I request you to stay on with us. I want you to hear what some of our viewers have to say. Kailash is a caller, Headlines Today viewer calling in from Mumbai. Kailash, go ahead. What's on your mind about this story?
Yeah, congratulations first of all to Headlines Today. You have raised a very, very important issue. Women are definitely not safe. And there are three points which I want to make. First of all, our investigation and prosecution of rape cases under 376 totally shabby. Just go and find an RTI with any court, and you will find the conviction rate is less than 2%.
Yes.
In spite of all the evidences. Secondly, the police departments, we have very, very honest officers, but they are not allowed to operate the free hand, you know. And third most important thing is, the government is not that proactive. This 376 action has to be totally, fully implemented strictly. And there should be no bail to those accused, you know. People get bail easily.
No, three very powerful points, Kailash. We agree with those points. There are rules already in place. It's just a question of how effectively they're actually implemented. Alok is our next caller. He's on the line with us from Gurgaon. Alok, if you can hear me, go ahead. What's your message?
My question is that, or the message is that the more acerbic these channels are becoming every day, because in order to trip each other on the TRPs, the more they are getting exposed. It has become terribly, terribly wrong for any viewer sitting in India, in any part of India, to see the kind of one-liners that the channel people are looking for. This is terribly wrong. You are conveying the wrong message to the country. Thank you.
Well, okay, I think you may be attacking the messenger rather than the message, but appreciate you calling in anyway. Columnist and writer Shobha Dey is on the phone line with us. Ms. Dey, good evening. It's a question that you probably heard before, Ms. Dey. Do you agree with it? Is it time to start comparing the safety levels of women in Mumbai with the notorious levels that they already suffer in Delhi?
Well, the character of Mumbai has changed over the last 10 years. One has to see it in the context of a city that's growing without any kind of planning, and it's not the same city it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It has always been a city that has nurtured women professionals, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. However, policing is much more difficult because the numbers have gone up so much. And the city has grown from being what it was to spreading out into the suburbs and beyond and beyond and beyond.
Yeah.
It continues to attract people from across the world, not just from across India. And perhaps the stress levels and the competition being what it is, it is going to lead to a fallout, which is unfortunate. There are going to be a whole lot of social issues connected to that that exact same situation with too many people, too little police, too little. Maybe the opportunities are shrinking to the extent that young professionals would like them to grow, but they're not. It's leading to frustration levels, stress levels, and unfortunately, the victims happen to be vulnerable young women professionals. But is it anywhere close to the notorious North? Absolutely not. We still don't have gun-toting sons of very rich men who walk into a bar, shoot a bar girl for not serving them a drink. Not yet.
Shobha, thanks for speaking to Headlines today and telling us what you think. It is about expanding Mumbai, changing habits, stress levels as well, but that's only one part of it. Let's get in a viewer. We've got a viewer calling in from Aurangabad right now. Go ahead, sir. What do you have to say?
Sir, I am Lakshman calling from Aurangabad. So this being an international case, it is getting the responses so fast. About 6 months back, one lady was burned to death in her house in Aurangabad. Nothing has come up till now. It is high time the police department acts on producing the FIRs in the right way. This is because the crime going unpunished. The prima facie itself, the cases are made loose, and at the end of 4 or 5 years, the lack of evidence is the reason given, and no one is punished. Unless until the crime is punished in the country, I don't think these cases will end. Because people have lost the fear of the law. That is the reason. That is the simple reason. Aurangabad case, everyone has forgotten.
Yes.
That's the sad part. That lady was burned to death in her own house.
No, Lakshman, you raise an extremely fair point, and we at Headlines today definitely empathize and completely agree with your point that the stories that finally make it to the national media perhaps are there because some of them are high-profile cases. I can assure you that Headlines today reports every story that it gets without taking sides and without judging the story about where it actually comes from. But it is a case, isn't it, Padmaja? The fact that, you know, there are cases that make it to the national media for some reason or the other. In this particular case, there's a Spanish national involved. It's probably a really scary thought how many cases actually go unreported. Not because of media, but because cases don't get registered, they get covered up. You know, it's people from far-flung areas, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, Shiv. In fact, if you just look at the data which has been put out by the National Crime Records Bureau, there is a disclaimer saying that these are only the cases that have been recorded. Think of the number of cases which go unreported for a variety of reasons. A, there is the stigma. B, there is the thought that who will get into this entire tangled legal process and go through that entire trauma all over again.
Yes.
And C, there is also the point that when you're talking about crimes against women, the one biggest crime, that of domestic violence, barely ever gets reported for the simple reason that there is a family involved. We're talking about rapes, we're talking about molestation of people from within India or outside. But what about Indian women who get assaulted inside their very houses? That usually goes unreported.
It's a sociological issue, it's a legal issue, it's an issue where the entire system probably needs overhauling. Nobody can argue that we need more laws. India has enough laws to control crimes against women. There needs to be a sensitive and effective implementation of them. We will continue to ask hard questions such as these here on Headlines today. Pankaj Upadhyay, Padmaja Joshi, thanks very much for getting us all that information on this story.